Well, hello and welcome to this week 3 of our 8-week series, our Introduction to Meditation. Thank you all so much for joining. Let's get started with some meditation, and then we'll get into the class properly in a bit. But let's try and settle ourselves. So if I can ask you to take your seat, whether you're on a cushion or sitting in a chair, sitting comfortably but alert, and invite you to take a nice deep breath in and let it all the way out. Once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And this time let it out very slowly, releasing any tension you're holding in your face, in your body. And allow your breathing to return to normal. And just invite you to notice what are the different pressures from your life right now. What are the different worries, responsibilities, all the stuff we carry around in our head from our lives. And just remembering that in meditation, we're going to try, as much as we can, to leave all that alone and try instead, for as long as possible, to put ourselves just into this present moment, letting everything else go. So you don't really have to do anything except being as present as you can. Really letting go of everything, and it's kind of more of a not doing. And one of the ways we anchor ourselves in the present moment is just to pay attention to our breathing. Just very gently starting to get a sense of your inhale and your exhale. And one of the ways sometimes it's easier to hold our attention a little bit longer in the moment is to really focus very narrowly just on the sensation of the air just as it enters your nose or your mouth. Looking at that sensation in detail. Really observing the texture, strength of sensation. See if you can notice how that sensation changes throughout the in-breath and then on the out-breath. Of course, the mind doesn't want to sit still, wants to think, has ideas and plans and wonderings. But a very large part of what we're doing in meditation, in addition to becoming more aware of the present moment, we are also becoming more familiar with our own mind and starting to see if we can just build a bit more awareness of what it's doing. So notice it as it tries to drag your attention away. We're not trying to fight it. You didn't choose to have those thoughts. They just appeared in consciousness. But when you notice them, you can then choose to let them go and simply start again. Once again, just noticing where your attention is. Being very gentle with yourself. Seeing if you can let go of whatever idea or thought is holding your attention. And then just practice starting all over again. Looking at the next breath as if it was the first time you ever did this. Once again, just noticing where your attention is. See if you can do that without judging yourself or the meditation. This is why we do it. And then ever so gently, just pay attention to the next breath. We come towards the last minute. Let's really encourage you to keep persevering. It really doesn't matter how busy your mind is. Sometimes the busier it is, the more you have to work at this letting go and starting again. Both really valuable skills. For the last few breaths, just see if you can let everything go and be as present as you can. Just invite you to take a nice deep breath in and let it all the way out. And being very gentle as we transition out of a meditation. Perhaps opening your eyes, noticing different colors, the different shapes in the room around you, as you connect yourself fully back into the room. So, welcome to week 3. We are going to look at some new meditation techniques, specifically this area of meditation known as noting, which is a very powerful addition, really, to mindfulness meditation. But before we do that, I wanted to talk a little bit about why we meditate. Why do we need to meditate, I would say? And that is to do with the nature of our mind. And I think it's worth stating up front that the mind is absolutely incredible. Your mind, my mind, the human mind is an extraordinary piece of machinery. We get to appreciate sunsets, and we get to listen to beautiful pieces of music, and we get to run our lives, and we remember some people's names some of the time. And we get to experience this thing called life, and we get to be self-aware. And there's this aspect of being human that we have this large prefrontal cortex, and we get to think and get to consider our lives. Now, it is amazing, absolutely amazing. And 95% of the time, it's doing its job without really thinking too much about it, and it does it amazingly. Absolutely incredible. However, there are some fundamental flaws in the way that the human mind is wired. And there are a number of these, and obviously there are some as a result of your upbringing and your parents and school and bullies and betrayal and life in general. As soon as you've lived a little bit, you've got enough scar tissue there. And as human beings, one of the things the mind does is we try and learn. We learn from our mistakes, we learn from pain, and therefore we try and avoid those things. And so we try and take lessons. But in addition to all of that, what I call the soft wiring, there's also a bunch of hard wiring, which is to do with just how everybody's mind is wired. And I find it helpful to sort of think, if you think back to sort of, say, 70,000 years ago, or 100,000 years ago, and human beings are just becoming self-aware, sort of Homo sapiens is just starting to become a little bit more dominant. And 100,000 years ago, in evolutionary terms, or at least this is the theory that evolutionary psychologists have come up with, these pieces of wiring in our brain, there may have been a couple of different types of human beings. There might have been the really happy-go-lucky, optimistic human beings who really looked at the bright side, and they saw the glass was definitely half full, and just generally good people, nice people to hang around with. And when they heard a rustle in the grass, they knew that 99 times out of 100, or maybe 999 times out of 1,000, a rustle in the grass, nothing. Probably just a little bird or a mouse or something like that. So they wander around knowing that most of the time this stuff is just fine. They're very optimistic. However, 1 in 1,000, I don't know what the odds are, But every so often, one of those little rustles in the grass is actually something that's going to kill you. And there were those human beings who were happy-go-lucky, and then there were those human beings who were completely paranoid and always worried that everything was a threat. Everything was something out to get them. Now, unfortunately for us, we are descended from the ones who are completely paranoid and constantly on the lookout for threats. Because the other people, they died out, unfortunately. They didn't make it. So it is hardwired into our minds to be fundamentally on the lookout for threats. And another way of looking at this is we tend to look for what's wrong in a situation before we will look for what's right in a situation. Another example I like to give is, let's just say you've gone out, you've gone to a party, you've been invited to a neighbor's party or something, and you've given your outfit a certain amount of thought, and it's a new outfit, and you think you're taking a little bit of a risk, but off you go. And the first 9 people you meet, they say, great outfit, really like the outfit, fantastic. And you're like, oh, feeling really good about yourself. And then somebody comes up and looks at your outfit, looks you up and down and sort of says, well, that was a bold choice. Not even saying anything negative. They're just kind of saying something. They're saying, bold choice. And now you do not focus on the 9 people who said it was a great outfit. You are completely obsessed about the one person who said, bold choice. So why is that? Why do we have this negativity bias? Well, it's inherited. It's not just you. It's not a personality defect. It's how the mind is wired. It's what the psychologists refer to as a negativity bias. We tend to focus on what's wrong in our lives rather than what's right in our lives. We also tend to focus on what's gone wrong in the past, our regrets, things that we wish hadn't happened, which of course is mostly pointless because they did happen. But nevertheless, that's a place we like to go in our minds, is to look at what went wrong. The other place we love to go, or we are wired to go, is to look into the future and to think of all the things that could go wrong. So it's the things that might go wrong. So we try and come up with a plan, and you sort of say, oh, well, I might like to go on holiday, but what if the trains are on strike? And what if there are no rooms? Or what if it's really expensive? Or what if the weather's bad? We tend to focus on what's wrong. Now, that's not always bad, but just pointing out that there is a predisposition within our minds to mostly focus on what's gone wrong in the past, what's wrong right now, and what's going to go wrong. The most extreme form of that is catastrophic thinking, where everything, you wake up at 3 a.m. and your mind is just racing with all of the things that are going to go wrong in the future and all the things you need to fix. So that's one way in which we're flawed, is just this predisposition towards negativity, or what I call sort of the threats. We're always on the lookout for threats. What's wrong? What's been wrong? What's going to go wrong? Another one that we have is, again, 70,000 years ago, people wandering around, happy-go-lucky people. They kind of, getting ready for the winter. They've got some food stored. They think they've got enough. Yeah, they're content. They're like, yeah, I think we've got enough. Anyway, particularly bad winter. Unfortunately, they died. Whereas the people who were obsessed with always having more, never having enough, always wanted more, who, no matter how much they have, they very quickly want more. Well, unfortunately, they're the ones that survived. So again, we are descended, or at least this is the evolutionary psychology theory, we are descended from people who had what's known as hedonic adaptation, which is a fancy psychological term for basically being dissatisfied very quickly, no matter what we've got. One way I think about this is just this idea that for the first 100,000 years or so of human existence, there was no electricity. There was very, very primitive shelter. No, not much heating except maybe a fire. No transport other than horses, really. So we didn't have cars, we didn't have planes, we didn't have fresh water at the touch of a button, we didn't have hot showers, we didn't have decent shelter, electricity, we didn't have computers, we didn't have the ability to connect with people all around the planet or to travel all over the planet. None of that stuff was available. And if people from 100,000 years ago could see the lives we lived today, or even really 300 years ago, they would assume we are walking around constantly in this state of rapture and delight at how lucky we are to live this amazing life. But I'm pretty sure you don't walk around in rapture at how lucky you are to be alive in this incredible time. In fact, you probably don't know anybody like that. That wouldn't be normal. Now, why not? Why don't we realize on a day-to-day basis how incredibly lucky we are? Because if we did, we'd walk around much happier than we do. We'd feel constantly like the luckiest people, which, of course, we are in history. We are the luckiest people. But that's not how it always feels. We feel overwhelmed and we can focus on what's wrong. That's the sort of the negativity bias. But we also, no matter how good things get, we get used to that very, very quickly, and then we want more. So, it used to be there was nothing like, we couldn't really travel very far. But now we have planes, and you can get on a plane. You can be anywhere in the world. But instead of going, oh my God, this is incredible, we go, oh, I got middle seat. I've got no legroom. Oh, the coffee sucks. We have adapted very, very quickly to this extraordinary situation, and then we are dissatisfied. No matter how amazing it is, our predisposition is to be dissatisfied very quickly. So, what do we do about it? Well, it turns out that is the wiring. That is the hardwiring. It's how almost everybody is wired. Now, some people, you may know a couple, they do have this bent towards optimism and good fortune and a glass is half full, but many of them have had to work at it, or they've been lucky enough to inherit it from a parent who had worked at it. But it's not the normal way, or at least that's what the psychologists say. It is normal that we have these biases towards negativity or dissatisfaction. There are a couple of others. So one other one that I'd just like to throw out, one aspect of our mind, is this habit we have, and again, evolutionary psychologists say this is for a very good reason, to do with survival, but we do this thing where we compare ourselves. The Buddhists refer to it as the comparing mind, where we look at our lives and then we look at other people's lives. Now, we go both ways on this. We can look at the people whose lives aren't as good as ours, or at least we don't perceive they're as good as ours, and we get a certain amount of sort of smug satisfaction out of that. Or what we also tend to do a little bit too much is we look at people who we perceive are doing better than we are, either because they've got more money, or they've got a nicer house, or they've got a nicer spouse, or whatever it is. We compare ourselves. So there's this comparing mind. Now, the Buddhists refer to the comparing mind as a place in hell. It's one of their hell realms, is this place we go in our mind where we compare ourselves to other people. And comparing ourselves in a superior way to people, they class as exactly the same. It's no better. It's just as poisonous to the soul. So there are these three things. And again, you can see for good reasons why they exist in our psyche, for survival reasons. But I think it's really helpful to understand that the human mind, the way it's been designed or built over thousands and thousands of years, is not for our happiness. That's the fundamental truth. Your mind is not built for your happiness. Your mind is built for your survival, with quite effective techniques for survival, which is why the human race has done so well. But some of those techniques, not all, but some of those techniques are designed to make you miserable. They are designed to make you miserable, to motivate you, towards getting more, or to be on the lookout for threats, or to compare ourselves to other people and make sure that we're sort of doing okay. Again, makes sense from a survival point of view. You don't want to be the outlier. Outliers don't do well. But in modern society, none of those three things are really necessary for our survival. So, where does meditation come in? Well, you can't really do much about the hardwiring. Hardwiring is the hardwiring. It's just how you're made. But if you know this is some of the weaknesses or fallibilities in the mind, then you can do something about it. Now, if you know it, actually, you can only do something about it if you then have the skill of being aware of your own thoughts and your feelings. And that is what we are developing in meditation. In many ways, I know most people come to meditation because they've heard it's good for stress and they want to feel a bit better, or they're having trouble sleeping, or they're a bit anxious or fearful or something. And they come to meditation because they want to feel better. And I'm always sort of a bit hesitant about this because on the one hand, I can make you feel better in 20 seconds, roughly. It's just steady your breathing, slow down your breathing, deepen your breathing. You can do it right now. Just breathe in nice and slowly to a count of 4. And then breathe out slowly to a count of 4. So, just by changing your breathing, you can feel a bit better. It creates what's known as a parasympathetic response in the body. And you start to de-stress a little bit. Now, that's not... Meditation is doing more than that, but that's one of the things we're doing in meditation is we are slowing down the breathing, and by focusing on the breathing, we create this parasympathetic response. But I think what's really going on in meditation is that we are starting to become more aware of our mind, and we're interrupting these habitual patterns we have. So we have these habitual patterns of negativity, or comparing ourselves to other people, or immediate dissatisfaction with focusing on what we don't have instead of what we do have. When we interrupt those habitual thoughts, it's like we sort of take a break. It's like going on a holiday in the mind just for a few minutes. And that's sometimes all it takes to stop the momentum of negativity or dissatisfaction or overwhelm. Is that if we can stop the train, even if it's just for a moment here and there, we can make ourselves feel a lot better. Of course, I think there's a lot more to this than just feeling a bit better. That's why we start. But as you become more aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your patterns, your habitual patterns of thought and behavior, once you develop that awareness moment to moment, where is your mind? What are you focused on? As you become more aware of that, you can then, through meditation, if you develop this skill, you choose where you want your attention to be. So, the bad news is, yes, the mind is a bit flawed. Yours, mine, everybody's mind is a bit flawed. Good news, not really your fault. It's just the way we're wired. The really good news is you can do something about it. You can develop agency with this stuff. You can, by developing the awareness of our mind, awareness of what's going on. And when we place our attention on the breath in this present moment, and then you notice that your mind has got distracted, that's why that's such a great moment. Developing that awareness. Where is my mind? Is it where I want it to be? And if it isn't, then we let it go and we start again. Okay. So we're going to do 3 more meditations. We'll do one right now, and then I want to introduce a new technique, and then we'll do a couple more meditations. So, Let's let all that stuff go, but I hope that gives you a little bit of motivation as to why this is so valuable and why I think we really need to meditate to get more of a handle on our own mind. So I invite you to take your seat. If you need to stretch, or, if you're feeling a bit tense, by all means. And then take your seat, whether you're on a cushion or in a chair. And I invite you to take a nice deep breath in. And let it all the way out. And once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And now let it out nice and slowly, releasing any tension you're holding in your face, in your shoulders, in your body. Just allow your breathing to return to normal. And once again, seeing if you can just give yourself permission to let everything go from your life. All your worries, plans, thoughts, even if it's concerns or questions about meditation. See if you can let all of that go for the next few minutes and just pay attention to this moment. We're going to start by placing our attention on the breathing. Really letting everything go except the sensation of the air as you breathe. And when we're looking at our breathing, you can choose to focus on any aspect of your breathing. The sensation of air is a common instruction. Equally, you can look at how your body is moving as you breathe. Noticing the rising on the inhale and the falling on the exhale. And when you notice your mind is kicked in, that is such an important moment as we become more aware of our own mind. And we practice seeing if we can let go of whatever it's grabbed hold of. And choose to start again. Perhaps by just seeing if you can simply pay attention to just one breath. And if you're still paying attention at the end of that breath, just try one more breath. I wonder if you can get really focused on the next breath. Really just be on the lookout for the next thought that pops into consciousness. So really paying attention to the breath and the sensation, perhaps. And then seeing if you can really be on the lookout for the next thought that appears to pull you away. And then in addition to our breathing, there are also thousands of other little sensations all over your body right now. Hopefully not terribly urgent or important, but you can choose to be very anchored in this moment by looking at sensations in your feet, for example. Just noticing in any given moment what those sensations are. Or the sensations in your legs. Be very aware of the sensation of your body in its seat, feeling the cushion or the chair underneath you. Seeing if you can also be aware of the more subtle sensations, where you feel the pressure of your clothing against your skin, the heaviness of your shoulders. Sensation of each of your fingertips. We're just placing our attention in this moment, aware of this breath. All of these hundreds of little sensations throughout our body. Letting everything else go. Just remember when you catch yourself thinking and no longer present in this moment, that is a really valuable moment. Developing this awareness of your own mind and then letting it go and starting again. So the last few breaths, being as present as you possibly can, letting everything go. I invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. And then very gently open your eyes, connect yourself back into the room, taking in different colors, different shapes. So, yes, your mind is flawed, but we have meditation. Okay, so a couple new techniques. Well, really one class of new technique, what's known as noting, which I believe comes out of, it's a Burmese school of meditation. And it is simply that we just add a tiny, tiny little thing into the mindfulness meditation. And that is that we just simply add an observation as to what's going on in the moment. So the most simple is to simply see if you can count your breaths. So you, for example, you try and count in and out as one. So you might count one on the inhale and one on the exhale. That's up to you. Some people like to do one and then two. But traditionally, you go one on the inhale, one on the exhale. And you just see if you can get to 10. And it's surprisingly difficult. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you can't get past 2. But it's an extra thing to hold our attention. Because as you know, and I know, the mind is pretty slippery. It loves to just think about anything else. And so we're just giving it something else to hold it in this moment for a little bit longer. Lots of different forms of noting. One of them is to notice, for example, that when you catch yourself thinking, you might just say to yourself the word thinking as you notice a thought of some description. So you just note thinking. So we're noticing what is happening in this moment. Now, you might not want to be thinking because we're trying to meditate, we're trying to be present in this moment because that feels really nice. I get it. But the reality is that your mind is going to kick in. Yours, mine, everybody's. That's what happens. So when it does, that is what is true in this moment, is your mind is present. And when you're lost in the content of your thought, you're not really aware of it. But the moment you become aware that you're thinking, in that moment, you are now present. And then you might say, thinking. And then you might go back to the present moment and perhaps just start counting again. So let's give this a go. What I'd like you to do is to just do this exercise of seeing if you can count your breaths up to 10. And then if you get to 10, just see if you can count back down again to 1. And it's not a competition. It doesn't mean you're good at this. If you do it, sometimes the mind is relatively steady and stable, and you can get to 10 sometimes easily. Sometimes it's really difficult. The other thing I've noticed is occasionally you might finally, you're doing it and you're fully present and you're counting and you think you're doing really well and you're like really on it. And then all of a sudden you notice you're on 24. You're like, how did that happen? Yeah. Well, it happens because you lost focus, because that's what happens. It's just part of being human. When that happens, notice that now, in that moment, when you get to 24 and you notice you're on 24, now you are present again and you're aware of your mind and you're aware of the situation. You've distracted yourself from whatever your mind has done. And you let it go and you just start again. Just start again at 1. If you do, in that moment, you catch yourself thinking about whatever, something from earlier today, a problem in your life, something you want to do, somewhere you want to go on holiday, whatever it is, when you catch yourself thinking about whatever, just see, perhaps you might find it helpful just to use that word and just say thinking. That little note to yourself. That's why it's called noting. That little note to yourself, thinking. And then see if you can let it go. Now, sometimes people find it's easier to let go of the thought when you just label it like that. You say thinking. And then it gives you a little bit of space to let it go and start again. So, once again, invite you to take your seat such that you're comfortable but alert. Take a nice deep breath in. Let it all the way out. And once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And this time let it out nice and slowly. Releasing any tension you're holding in your body or in your face. And allow your breathing to return to normal. And we're going to do this for about 5 minutes, just trying out this breathing with counting meditation. And as you get focused on your breathing, just very gently, see if you can start counting. And if you get to 10, then come back down to 1. And if you never get past 3, that's fine. Just keep starting again. Please don't judge yourself in any way for getting distracted. We're just trying to be present with whatever's true and very slowly becoming more familiar with the present moment and with the patterns of our mind. Just learning to notice, become aware of the mind when it distracts us, and then practicing letting go and starting again. Just invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Very gently open your eyes, connect yourself back into your room. Next technique, noting technique, is very similar to that, but some people prefer the counting, some people prefer this, is what I'd like you to do is just to say to yourself as you're breathing in on the inhale, really very gently paying attention to the sensation and to noticing your breath. And then just to add in very gently, just to say and to observe that you are breathing in. So the traditional note is just to say, breathing in. And then as you breathe out, just to note, breathing out. As a way of trying to hold your attention in the present moment for a little bit longer by giving your mind something else to hold on to. Now, of course, your mind is still going to wander, but noting can be this quite interesting way of just getting a little bit more present for a little bit longer. So invite you to give this a go. We'll finish a little bit earlier tonight, but so we'll do a slightly longer meditation. It'll probably be about 13-ish minutes. I'll start you in, guide you in, and then leave you alone with it for quite a long time. Every so often I'll still interrupt, but just because I've gone silent doesn't mean I'm not here. Well, I hope I'm still here. And but I'm going to try and give you a little bit longer. And remember that every time you get distracted, that's really not a bad thing. Of course, it's lovely to be very present in the present moment. It feels great. But every time you notice you're distracted, you're building that awareness of your mind, which I hope I've given you some thoughts about why that's so important. So developing that awareness of your own mind. So every time you get distracted, that's a great thing. You didn't choose to have that thought. You chose to try and be present in the moment, paying attention to the breath. These thoughts appear almost out of nowhere into your consciousness. So when that happens, it tends to drag your attention away. Over time, what you will get a bit better at, I'm still a work in progress, but what you get a bit better at is noticing the thought as it arises. And then sometimes you get, certainly early on, what tends to happen is the moment a thought arises, you immediately invest in it. You pay attention to it. You listen to it. You think it some more. You give it some energy, get some momentum, starts thinking about other things. And then it develops a feeling. And then the feeling generates a thought. And all of a sudden you're hungry or whatever, or fearful or worried or something. But instead of that, what eventually will happen, what you get a bit better at, is when a thought arises, you don't immediately attach to it. You can see it arising, and then you can choose whether or not you invest in it or not. And obviously, when we're trying to meditate, these thoughts will happen forever. You never get rid of them, but you do get better at just not paying attention to them. But that only comes with better awareness and a bit of practice. So let's give it a go. Noting our breathing, just to invite you to find a comfortable seat such that you are comfortable but alert. I invite you to take a nice deep breath in and let it all the way out. And once again, take a nice deep breath in, but this time hold it at the top for a moment. And now let it out very gently, releasing any tension in your face, in your body, your shoulders. And allow your breathing to return to normal. I'm just going to see if you can have the intention simply to do your best with this. And part of that is about being non-judgmental, as non-judgmental as you can be. And just letting things go and starting again over and over and over. When you get a little bit of stillness, when you get present, it's lovely. It really is. It's very calming and relaxing. But the process is moments of stillness and then developing awareness of our mind. So, doing your very best, and that's good enough. And just deciding to settle, to let everything go from your life, releasing all of your tensions, your worries, just for the next 10 minutes or so. Allowing yourself to just become very present right now in this moment with this next breath. And as you breathe in, just noting you are breathing in. It's almost a whisper in the back of your mind. Sometimes people say, rather than saying it, you hear it. But, of course, you do have to be saying it. But it's so gentle, it's almost as if you're just hearing it in the back of your mind. Breathing in, breathing out. Paying attention to the sensation as you breathe in and as you breathe out. I'm going to leave you in silence for about 3 minutes, then I'll just say something in case your mind is a long way down a track. And then I'll let you know when there are 3 minutes left at the end. Breathing in, breathing out. We're about 3 minutes in. To ask you to be very gentle with yourself. It is not a failing when you get distracted at all. It's just part of being human. We simply notice our mind, and when you do, that's a really valuable moment. And then we practice letting go and starting again. Just about 3 more minutes left. Just encourage you to keep persevering. Sometimes the mind is really quite distracted and flighty, and then all of a sudden you keep persevering, and then suddenly it finds a bit of stillness. See if you can just start again when you notice you've got distracted. Just perhaps paying attention to one breath at a time. Breathing in, breathing out. For the last few breaths, really seeing if you can really let everything go, being fully present with the sensations in your body and with your breathing in and breathing out. And invite you to take a deep breath in and let it all the way out. Just being very gentle as you transition out of a meditation. Really seeing if you can avoid just jumping straight back into your life and your phone, your to-dos. Just seeing if you can carry a little bit of this awareness and presence with you into the rest of your evening. And once again, take a nice deep breath in and let it out. Then gently opening your eyes, connecting yourself back into your room, perhaps noticing colors and shapes in the room around you. So, week 3 done. I hope I've given you some food for thought about why this meditation is more than just kind of a way of feeling a bit better, but actually a way of us getting more familiar with our minds in a way that we can have more agency over them. Sometimes your mind is your best friend. Sometimes it's not. And meditation is the only training I've come across that really helps you in a practical way develop that awareness of your own thoughts and feelings. So it is partly about developing this present moment awareness. It's also a big part of it is becoming more familiar with our own minds so that we've got more say-so in what we entertain and what we don't entertain. But it does mean, unfortunately, you have to do it. So I'm going to encourage you, try and do some. And I'm going to ask you to try some more of this noting stuff. If you like the counting 10, give that a go. If you like just breathing in, breathing out, give that a go. Next week, we will take that noting thing up a notch, actually, and we're going to do what I think of as being a relatively sophisticated mindfulness meditation. As we use our own attention as the source of our focus, which is sort of the focus is the focus. But anyway, we'll cover that next week. In the meantime, this week, every morning at 8 o'clock GMT, I will be doing meditations. Some of them will be live, some of them will just be posted. I hope you can participate in some of those. We'll just be looking at these noting techniques. But in the meantime, I hope you have a great week and hope to see you again next week or maybe during the week in the meditations. Thank you so much for joining me in this little experiment. Very best of luck. Thanks a lot, everybody.